And people have brought up, you need to have guest parking. We completely agree. We agree that there should be guest parking provided outside of gates where it's accessible. But again, in the interest of revitalization, we don't want to be dramatically exaggerated in the amount of parking that's required, because that will have the effect of discouraging reinvestment.
Commissioner Tell?
Well, I would just make a few, they're more comments than anything else. The guest parking spaces, 1 per 8 units, it doesn't feel like it's enough. Why go against the average? You know, the across the valley, why go against that? There may be a good reason, but I've not heard it.
With multifamily, my thoughts are that the increase to the studio and 1 bedroom makes sense to me. I'm struggling with the decrease of the 2 bedrooms.
Right.
For me, I know rents in Scottsdale are increasing. I believe it's, in my opinion, that will require multiple income earners to pay rent. And I would take another step forward and say that if you're an income earner, the likelihood of you having a car is high. And I think that's applicable to 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units. But I do struggle with the 2 bedroom being reduced. With that, also in the downtown area, we keep saying it's more urban, but I can tell you one of the considerations I look at is, what do we have for grocery down there? So we don't have the facilities to incentivize removing a car from the situation at this point. I want to say you have a Sprouts at Callenbach and Miller, and the next closest true grocery store would be in Albertsons at Thomas and Scottsdale. I don't know many people who are eating out every night or having their food delivered to them on a constant basis. So I'm not understanding the reduction of needing a car and thus parking for those spaces. So at this point, I'm liking very much that A and B are going up, or the studio and 1 bedrooms, and that C, the 2 bedrooms, I struggle with it dropping to 1.7. Guest parking, these photos from Mrs. Kirtley are very evidential that guest parking is an issue. I don't know what the right ratio is.
And I do want to thank Sonny Kirkley for the submission of this photo. Commissioner Scarborough discussed it. This is, I can't remember the name of the unit. I think the name has changed a couple times or so, but it's at the northeast corner of Granite Reef and Indian School. This just isn't Scottsdale. It's just not Scottsdale, I don't think. And what is happening here is, I don't even know what the contents of, or what the requirements of guest parking in this unit are, but you can't even get to it. And I appreciate when Randy Grant was on the phone, he said that city staff believes that public or guest parking for these types of multifamily units should be accessible. There should not be a barrier between the guest and the parking spot. So I really hope it moves forward in that direction. The other stuff I want to talk about on multifamily is the guest parking. So we were given a list. We were told for a while that city staff had selected 11 neighboring or nearby or valley municipalities and compared requirements to. We got those yesterday. And it kind of raised the question in my mind of, as I was looking through those names, and I was like, what do we want to be? Well, which direction do we want to go? Do we want to go towards, like, some of those denser places, or do we want to go in a different direction? Do we want to be, and I think the answer is we want to be uniquely Scottsdale. So what is Scottsdale, and how is that differentiated? Well, I think that Scottsdale is a place where people do rely on cars to get to the downtown, to shop, tourism, so many things we do down there. So when you think about guest parking and not having any guest parking, it would probably poll at 90% or whatever the number would be, that we need some sort of guest parking. City staff provided the comparison of those cities today, and I went and looked at those, and even Tempe, which has 2 tiers of parking, of guest parking requirements for its multifamily across its municipality, they even have a 0.1 parking spot for every unit for multifamily in the densest part of Tempe. So nobody wants our parking in downtown Scottsdale to be like Tempe's in the Mill Avenue area. So we've got to get that up. So then you look at, okay, well then we add 1 guest parking spot per 8 units. That to me doesn't seem sufficient. There's people that talk about 1 out of 4. I think it was when this commission just recently had looked at the Kimsey project, the Triangle, that was passed by the city council at 1 parking spot per 4 units, if I'm not incorrect. And people were pretty happy with that. And so we're looking at 1 to 8, and I think there's some room for improvement there. Some people raise, and it is, if we took out the cities that we don't want to be trending towards and maybe want to be, keep us Scottsdale, that average of 1 to 6 or whatever it was, 1 to 5, that is going to change. So those are some thoughts that I had. I do think, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, that the guest spots being accessible, if you put guest parking spots, and they're behind a barrier or a gate of some sort, you might as well not even put them.
Vice Chair, anything?
I'll keep my comments brief because I think the other commissioners hit all these nails on the head. I guess I'd like to just repeat Commissioner Scarborough's mention of the reduction of the 2-bedroom unit. I just don't see that that's going to be a positive thing. I would say that most people that live in the downtown area that would have a 2-bedroom isn't like parents with a young child in that 2nd bedroom. I'm sure that it's 2 income earners that may have 2 cars. So I think that keeping that at the 2 mark is probably more appropriate. The guest parking, obviously from photos that I'm seeing here that one of the speakers had sent in, this is a huge problem, and it spills out into the neighborhood, and it's not fair for those adjacent property owners.
But one question I have, and I don't know who can answer this, is when it comes to the multifamily guest parking requirements, is it the management or ownership of that multifamily property, or is it a city rule or ordinance that determines when it comes to overnight parking? And I ask that because I was considering purchasing where some good friends of mine live in South Scottsdale, amazing, newer, energy-efficient condos, great complex. They do have some guest parking, but no one can park overnight. And there's no other place to park. There's not even a safe parking lot for miles. There's nowhere to park. And if I want to have a guest, or anybody wants to have a guest that comes in from out of town, and my whole family's out of town, they wouldn't be able to park anywhere. And that's something to keep in mind. Again, I don't, and maybe I'm talking through my question, but I don't know who determines that overnight part. So yeah, they could park there during the day, but heaven forbid would they want to stay for a day or two, because you can't. And there are so many stories. It's a battle with their HOA and people's cars getting towed, and it's a disaster. And that deterred me from purchasing a $500,000 2-bedroom condo, So, but that's silly, but that's, impacting real estate for things like that. So I think the overnight part of it is an important component.